Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Panorama from the Lagos Network Center. My name is Taiwo Odugbeson. Thanks for joining us. Today we are going to explore an important but oftentimes awkward topic that every parent must discuss with their children. First, we will take a look at the news making the headlines. Stay tuned. Children are a gift entrusted to us by God. As adults, it is incumbent upon us to protect them and impart the knowledge and discipline needed for them to protect themselves and to respect the boundaries and rights of others. Cultivating a healthy sense of self-worth and esteem are also important tools in raising strong children. However, with the rise of reported cases of child sexual abuse and assault, one has to ask, are we doing enough? With us today to discuss the role of sex education in the prevention and treatment of sexual assault and child sexual abuse is Dr. Princess Olufemi-Kayode, a rape victims' rights advocate. Welcome to Panorama.
Thank you very much for having me.
First, how would you describe the level of awareness and attitudes towards sex education in the country?
I'll say it's a bit low, but then it's basically much of a societal and cultural issue. We don't talk about sex. And when it comes to children and sexuality education, we use the word sexuality education and not sex education because it's a bit very, you have a lot of issues around sex talk. And then you find we had no one tell us about sexuality education. We had to learn the hard way. And so the level is low. We don't believe you have to educate children. It's much more like if a child is starting her period, all you tell her is that no man should touch you. And that's the kind of thing we got. And that actually gave a lot of fear instead of actually educating children to actually understand what it is that is happening to them.
Yeah, many parents struggle with the right to have the talk. In your opinion, when is the appropriate time to discuss sex with your child?
Interesting enough, we are in a different generation. All generations have their own dynamics. This generation, you find that we have children with high level of intelligence. As they're growing, they talk faster, they pick things faster, and then they ask questions. They are even bold to ask questions. We could not even ask questions. So we advise as soon as a child can talk and as soon as a child start asking questions. Some of them could be as low as 1, some of them could be as low as even 2. But then they start asking those questions, you need to actually give them. But you have to answer them with age-appropriate information. You're not going deep into sexuality, sexual intercourse talk, but you're going into the basic questions. Why am I different from you? Why are you pregnant? You need to be able to set, give them good answers because they talk. Even at 2, when you find 2-year-olds sit together, they talk. And there are much more exposure in today's world. And also we have a highly sexualized world today. So everywhere children are turning, sex is speaking to them.
But many of them ask deeper questions that you don't even expect from their age.
That's why I say they are very different. They are quite a different generation and they need answers. And the best place for the answers to come is really at home.
How can sex education prevent child abuse?
Wow. It helps us to empower the children. First of all, they're empowered, they have information. Sexual abuse thrives in a circle of silence. And because we keep quiet, we're actually fueling abuse, the increase of abuse. And we're also supporting those who do it. Because they know that even if the child comes up to you to say something happened, they are shut up. And then we, for different reasons that are selfish, not to the child's benefit, we don't speak out. But if a child has already been educated, he or she knows what are the parts of the body. He or she has been educated on boundaries, on privacy. When someone shoots that bound, we have created a rapport between ourselves and our children that makes the child walk up to you almost immediately, if at all, whether somebody made an attempt or somebody actually, committed the act. So it's at that early stage, it is easy to get involved and stop it and save the child's life. So prevention, sex education helps a lot with prevention. It helps us to shorten the duration of abuse, and it helps us to also create a rapport between us and our children, where our children can always walk up to us. And that particular kind of education creates a lot of intimacy between families, because we're open on those discussions. So there's really no boundary. There's nothing I'm afraid to come and tell my dad or my mom, because I know they will listen to me.
But statistics show that sexual abuse is usually carried out by people that the child knows. Given this information, is it wise to limit sex education in the home setting?
No, but the first place is the home. The first and most important place is the home. In schools, fine. In the religious setting, also very wonderful to still have that as part of sexuality education. The children still go to church and they learn sexuality education based on the Bible, based on the Quran. There's something telling them, because we are very religious people, and that is something we hold very dear. So it's also good to be able to utilize that and strengthen sexuality education even at religious level. But in schools, very important. And now it's not just for those who are into puberty and adolescents. Right to the minor, as they're coming in at kindergarten, you're already teaching them the parts of your body, and why it's important. No one should touch them, and a lot of other things that need to be set in to make sure that other places are actually safe for children.
Yes, looking at reports from other countries in the world, would you say sexual abuse on children is prevalent in Nigeria?
No. All over the world, children are in danger. Let me use the word endangered. Kids all over the world. In 1999, WHO declared it a public health epidemic, which means everywhere in the world, kids have a huge challenge in the homes. So it's not just the war front, it's not just in areas of conflict. There's a huge conflict going on right in the home, in the schools, wherever children are. And we being Africans, there's more accessibility to children even than for those who are abroad. Because those who are abroad either have to kidnap children or either have to try to get into a home. But we don't need people to get into a home. They're there. They're just all over the place, and kids are very accessible. But then we will not say we have a high rate. It is actually escalating everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world. Even with the countries that have better response systems, it's still the same.
What would the ideal curriculum consist of at home or school?
At home, where is what curriculum? At home, basically, you want to talk about body parts. It actually depends on the age. It actually depends on the age of the child, because for those who are much more older, their questions are multiple because there are already changes going on in their bodies, and they need to understand what the changes are. Why would I be moody? Why won't I be moody? Why would I, for a girl, we want a boy to be comfortable? Because when we get into that age, there's also issues of self-esteem, not just because of abuse, but because I don't know it's happening to others, and I think it's just me it's happening to, and I think I'm awkward. Like a boy feels awkward when his scrotum is enlarging, and so there's a lot of things that go on between them. But because of education, there's a way to make children understand what is really going on. And then for the little ones, you want to talk about their body, you want to talk about privacy, you want to talk about setting boundaries, you want to make sure you don't undress at a particular age, you want to make sure you stop bathing your child, particularly in those private areas, at a particular age, and you teach them to do it themselves, and nobody else can do it. So we can't really peg in this program what a curriculum will really be like. But then to also support, we already have a curriculum in the schools, in the secondary schools. There's a curriculum at federal level. But the issue is the implementation of the curriculum. That's the issue. It's not just having the curriculum, but what are we doing with what we even have? What do we want to improve on it, and how do we make sure it's more effective and it's reaching down? And then how can children in primary and kindergarten also access information even at school level? Yeah, that's the thing.
But some fear that sex education can cause children to become interested in sex.
It's all
at an early age.
It's actually more of a bit of ignorance even for the adults as well, because research, and here we're not very much into empirical evaluations here. We're not too much into research, but research has proven already that it actually helps. It helps children. I mean, as I'm getting to be 14 and I'm approached by either an older person, whether still a teenager like myself or someone much more older, because I'm already educated, and I know that if I get into unsafe sex, this is the result. I either have an STI, the probability of having that, or getting pregnant and stopping my own education, which doesn't affect the boy, So I make an informed decision. It's my decision, and I'm informed because I already know. So I take responsibility even at that age to know that yes, I made a mistake. So education actually helps a lot because they already know that, see, this thing I'm going to have it to myself, so why do I get into it? And then they don't understand. And it is even illegal by law, whether I'm 14 or 16, and I say yes, it's illegal because I still don't have the deep understanding of what I'm getting into.
When dealing with the medical aspect of treatment, there are things that need to take place after an assault or abuse. Can you discuss these things as well?
Yeah, I can do that quickly. It's not so
as
much.
well as post-exposure prophylaxis.
Basically, if someone is raped and almost within 72 hours, there are certain medical attention that the person actually requires. They're called prophylaxis, that there are different forms, but the one for HIV is called post-emergency prophylaxis. It must be accessed within 72 hours. Once the person is tested and they are not positive, they are put on the prophylaxis. And I think it's going to take about 28 to 30 days regimen, and it has to be managed. It's not something you can pick up the shelf. You need to really go through, because they'll be testing you. You'll be going through tests. They'll see you within some period, so you don't. It's also had a lot of side effects, so it has to really be managed by those who are qualified to do that. Also, if you're old enough to get pregnant, you will be given what was called emergency contraceptive to prevent you getting pregnant within 72 hours. This must be accessed within 72 hours. And then, of course, you're also put on other prophylaxis to prevent other STIs. Hepatitis B vaccination will be given to you to avoid that, because it can also be contracted to sexually transmitted infection. But those are basically that. Apart from maybe you have a tear, you have bruises, and there has to be some stitches. So basically, and we always still say, if it is life-threatening, that means that person is really bleeding, it's first to really have a first aid. So if it means that the nearest hospital to use a private one, get in there and at least get the first aid before you begin to move forward to a government hospital.
What is the level of awareness about treatment options?
Wow. Not many people are aware that there are some things that you have to do within 72 hours, and that is actually increasing our HIV and other kinds of diseases. But the issue is there's a lot of movement within the civil society to make sure that we are actually doing something to create awareness. We run the only rape crisis center in the country, and it's one of the media educations that we give around that. See, even if you don't want to prosecute, which is only for adults anyway, as long as you are 18 and above, you can decide you don't want to prosecute. You need to access help. Access what will keep your life, intact, and you can still move on with your life, which means all the health and medical tests that needs to be done. But it's interesting. I also believe that this medium is also another way to let people know that, see, you can actually prevent certain things happening to you even after the traumatic event has happened. There are things you can do to reduce the level of trauma that you would face. I mean, think of getting pregnant from a rape. Think of picking up HIV from a rape or any other form of disease. It's always painful.
And how beneficial is counseling?
Counseling is actually important. It's actually very necessary. There are different types of counseling. There's what we call trauma management, which is the immediate managing the trauma of the immediate states of the victim. And then there's also the continuous what we call the healing process. You still have to go on healing, and that differs a lot with different people. It depends on what happened to them. It depends on the loved ones they have, because it's not just the counseling. The immediate environment of the victim also is highly important to those who love them, so that they could be able to make sure the person stabilizes.
But do we have enough people doing that in Nigeria? I mean, counseling.
No. I'll say no. But I think it's also because it's not been a field that is also lucrative, and it's also not been a field that has been highlighted. It's not really so much highlighted. A lot to do with sexual response, sexual assault response, sexual abuse response, and sexual violence response. It's not so much in the market for us as a country right now. Yeah, but I think with the level of sexual assault happening, the level of reports in the media as well, people actually stepping out. It's because there's more going on the needs. That's why people are actually stepping out. That's the reason. So it's not like we have more. People are coming out now because they're talking about it. So I can also get help. I can also talk to somebody. Something will happen and my child will be secured, or I'll be safe, or whoever did it will have to face justice. So you have more reports coming out. But the truth is, we need more people to come out. I had to go back to school to do clinical, criminal justice psychology, that's forensic psychology, just basically because there's nobody going to court talking about it from a profile point of view as a psychologist. All we have is just the medical doctors who will come in to talk about examination in court.
And how long should counseling go on?
Counseling will go on depending on the particular person, depending on how the person heals. For children, we always say it depends on who abused them, the closeness, the kind of abuse, because there are different forms of sexual abuse. The kind of abuse, the duration of the abuse will determine the impact on the person's life.
And should counseling be extended to family members and friends?
It is highly very important because everybody's traumatized.
Why?
Everybody's, okay, you're sitting here, Taiwo, can I ask you, can you imagine your child being sexually molested?
No.
Good, that's the answer. It's not possible. So it's sometimes, so you find some people look as if it's denial. That even if you come and tell me my brother touched you, I just can't put the picture together. It's just not comprehensible. It's not imagine. You can't even imagine the picture. So it's then to come and discover that it is true is a huge weight on an adult as well, apart from the child.
So I think the responsibility should fall more on family members. Especially
immediate
the
family
parents.
members. Yes. Yeah.
We have been discussing the role of sex education in the prevention and treatment of sexual abuse, sexual assault, and child sexual abuse with Dr. Princess Olufemi-Kayode, a rape victims' rights advocate. We want to thank you once again for coming on the program, ma.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this edition of Panorama. Please join us again next Tuesday from the Lagos Network Center for another fresh package. Good day.